Hey guys, so we're going to be starting SketchUp today. We're going to go ahead and just jump right into it here. We've got a couple options for templates to start with. I'm going to go ahead and start with the default simple inches template here, the first one. We do have some others. The the size unit is what helps determine what numbers it accepts if you just enter a number without a unit. It also helps it with scale. So if you're working on a much larger project, then you might want to use something more like meters or feet if they should still have a feet template. Um, because you end up running into issues with zoom if you use something like feet or meters if you're trying to zoom really small. So let's go ahead and stick with inches, and we can just click on this right here and get started. When it eventually loads, so this is the default loading screen for SketchUp. You guys might be missing a toolbar over here. If you want to access that, click on View, go to Toolbars, and then check Large Tool Set. There are a couple different tool sets in here, and some of them we may talk about later. Some of them are already open here in the default tray, but those are going to be something we'll kind of discuss later. Before we talk about anything else, let's talk about movement. So there's two main ways that we're going to get around in here. The first one is going to be using the middle mouse button. If you press down and hold on the middle mouse button, you can see that it gives me the sign for the orbit tool, which is this one right here. And anytime I press it, it's going to toggle that tool on and then go back to the one I was last using. As you can see, I jumped there, and what happens is you can double click with it and it will jump you sideways to get somewhere too. So we can use the hold down on the middle mouse wheel and rotate around, and you can see that I kind of move up and down and kind of side to side here. So that's how we'll move around using orbits. The other option we have is the pan tool. You can click H on the keyboard, and that turns on this pan tool right here, and that lets us pan the camera. So we'll keep facing the direction we were, but we'll actually be moving kind of left, right, up, and down. And then finally, we have the zoom tool, of course, which will let us zoom in really close if we want, or zoom out really far. This is just like in AutoCAD, you need dependent on where the mouse is. So if I have the mouse over here on the left side of the screen and zoom out, and then move it to the right side and zoom in, you can kind of move around a little bit that way too. For those of you who kind of had trouble, I know a couple people were having trouble with like, well, I'm trying to look up, and you just kept zooming here. Don't forget you have to move the mouse in between there. All right. Let's talk about selection too, just like in AutoCAD. You can hit spacebar in here and it'll bring up the selection tool. Just like in AutoCAD, the left to right select is different from the right to left. So if I do a selection across this guy and I don't fully circle him, then it won't pick him up. If I do right to left and just grab like even just the sliver of hair of his hat, it will select him. I have to go all the way around things. Now, there are different times where we can leverage this, and I might mention some of it in a lecture. But for now, we can go ahead and just erase this guy. So what I'm going to do is you can hit E to bring up the eraser tool and just drag it across him. Another option I have is to just click on him as well, and then I can hit the delete key on the keyboard. So there's eraser tool and delete key to erase. Click left to right and right to left selection to select things. Okay, so I'm going to be working off of the origin here, and so we're going to work down just a couple of tools here, and we'll go over some of these as we kind of build a small room. So what I'll do is hit the L key. That'll bring up the line tool, which is this one right here. And then I'm going to start at the origin, but while I'm doing that, I'm going to start near the origin because I want to show you guys kind of how it does some of the snaps here. So if I'm going to start drawing right here, for example, it's going to, without any other reference, it's going to start me kind of on the 2D plane of the red and green axes here. Only if I really want to is it going to kind of let me get into the blue axis, which is fine. We can work with that. So if I'm going to build a 10 foot by 10 foot space, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this off, and you can see that it kind of becomes, it snaps to this axis and then becomes the color of the axis I'm snapping to as I'm going around. So I'm going to move into this green axis, and then I'm going to type 10 feet and hit enter. And that's going to draw this line in that direction, same vector, 10 feet. Move it to the red axis and repeat that process. Now, one other thing that we have we had a lot of reference tools in SketchUp, and a lot of you guys picked, or sorry, in AutoCAD, and a lot of you guys picked those up pretty quickly. We've got a lot of the ones in here too, and pretty much all of them are on by default. So right now you can see if I go to start a line right here, I have this green dot. This is going to be an endpoint. Midpoint is that teal dot. Anywhere that I have a line that's, say, going off in a similar direction, you can see that it gives me that fuchsia line right there. If I want to get this, and you can see there it just kind of snapped to this right here, there's a couple ways I can get this to work. If it wasn't giving me that snap, what I could do is just get it on the green axis. And then if I hold down shift, you see how it kind of turns that line bold? I can use this to snap it to the same, so that it's perpendicular to this right here. And then I can click once again to draw this in. Now, once I did that, I ended up with 4 faces around here, and actually you can do even 3 faces will work to generate a face right there. Or sorry, 3 edges will generate a face. Now, the reason why you want to have a face there is so you have something to look at, right? If everything was just kind of empty spaces, you have nothing going on. So once we have a face, we can do things with these faces. Before I talk about anything else, though, I just want to point out, and we'll loop back to this later. See how this face has a dark side and a light side? That one has a dark side and a light side. We'll get into materials later, but anytime you're working with faces, you want to try and work on the lighter side of them. And that's because some of the 3D rendering programs that you might use will only recognize materials that are on the lighter side. So ones on the back won't get recognized. And there's been a couple times, the way that you would fix this is select the faces that are facing the wrong way. You would right click and do reverse faces, and you can see that that's darker. You can fix that manually by doing that. But I have seen people build their entire models with dark face and then go and try and render it, and everything looks weird because it's all showing impossible, like, weird things. So, anyway, that's one way to draw a rectangle. The other option is this right here, the rectangle tool, and you can hit R to access this. When you draw with the rectangle tool, you have 2 measurements, and you can, again, just like AutoCAD, you'll reference this little box right here, and you can reference anything here as well in case you want to mod it. So if I'm doing another 10 foot by 10 foot, I can type 10 foot, comma 10 foot, and hit enter, and I end up with a 10 foot rectangle. Another option is I can do different sizes as well. When you're entering this, it's going to take the red axis, then the blue, or sorry, red axis first, green axis second, blue axis third. So if I'm going this way, the first number is going to be the distance on the red axis. So let's say 2 feet, and then 10 feet for the green axis, and you can see that it drew that correctly. If I'm doing something where I'm going to be working on, say, the green and blue axis, and this might be a little bit harder to set up. So if I do this at 2 feet, so 2 feet for the green axis, 10 feet for the blue axis, and we end up with that. So remember that a lot of these things, if you have to enter 2 out of 3 values, it's going to go red first, then green, then blue. Okay. And then again, just to reinforce the left to right selection, I can go left across here and just select that. I can go left and just select these two edges. I can do right to left and just grab what I touch, which in this case includes the face here. Now there's a couple different things you can do with the selection as well. So there's a single click where it'll only select what I grab. There's the double click, which will select anything that is part of the face that I double click on. So if I double click on this face, I just join these two. If I double click on this face, it doesn't select these, whereas if I double click on these, it doesn't select these. The other option you have is a triple click, so 1, 2, 3, and it's going to select everything that's attached to this. So you have more kind of flexibility with your selections, as well as just being able to hold down shift to add or subtract, control to only do adds, and then let's see, is there, yeah, control shift to do subtraction only. But again, you can reference down here for this as well. All right, let's talk about move tools real quick because I just moved that. There's a bunch of cool things you can do with the move tool. So If I want to move this over this way, obviously you would just kind of enter whatever distance, right? You start it and hit a distance. So let's say I move it, oops, 4 feet on the red axis, so just type 4 feet. There you go. If I wanted to move it in the green axis, obviously I can move it in the green axis, and I can go 10 feet out this way, and it moves it out 10 feet that way. If I want to move it in the blue axis, I can also try and get it to go up in the blue axis, and it'll work. And we can do, 2 feet there too. But if I want to do it, say in an angle that's, if I'm in a tight space and it keeps snapping to something else, I can use the keys on my keyboard. So the 4 arrow keys. So if I do left, it's going to do green. If I do right, it's going to be red. So I just remember that as right is red and then left is green. And then the up and down arrows are always going to be the blue axis. And it looks like it's just the up arrow now. So if I want to snap it to one of these directions, I can alternate through those as I need. And then repeat the previous one to get it out of it. So if I'm locked in red, I can hit green to switch to green, or if I'm in red, I can hit right arrow to just get out of that mode entirely. And then just like I showed you guys before, I can, once I have it on an axis, if I want to, I can hold down shift and ensure that it keeps snapping to that axis. Okay, the other thing we have the move tool. Let's talk about rotate really quick. Rotate tool is going to take a face and it's going to rotate it in direction. So you click on wherever you want your rotation point to be, and then you click on a starting axis and an ending axis. So I can rotate this around any way I want, or I can enter a number like 90 degrees and it'll rotate it 90 degrees. If I want to rotate this in a different direction, like let's say I wanted to stand this vertically up, I can again use the arrow keys. So red for red axis, green for blue, or left for green axis, up for blue axis. So let's say I wanted to rotate it this way, then I could start there, go straight up, and then type 90, and that would make it sitting up vertically. Okay. Another cool thing, and I kept accidentally turning it on there out of habit, is the copy move tool. I briefly, I think, showed you guys how to do that in AutoCAD, but it doesn't get a lot of use there, whereas in here it does. So if I move something off in a direction here, what I can do is I can hit the control key to toggle a move copy. So this is me moving it, but I'm also like leaving the original in place. So if I move this out, I can hit 4. Now, I moved that 4 feet, it's 2 feet wide, so you end up with that extra space in the middle. But something SketchUp does really cool is I haven't done anything else. I've just entered the 4 here. If I enter X, let's say 7, it's going to duplicate it 7 more times. So you can end up doing some really cool things with this, where if you have, say, like, you can even do fences if you wanted to. It might be a little bit more time consuming than you'd like. But there's a couple cool times where you can end up using a move copy to move and copy a thing multiple times in a single vector. Okay, we have a couple other tools here. So like there's the circle tool, pretty standard. It default starts at 24 sides. Again, I kind of want to prepare you guys for rendering. So if you are getting down into the weeds of stuff, you're really enjoying modeling and you're putting your own stuff together, you might want to reconsider some of these default settings. 24 sides is a lot of sides, and what I specifically mean by that is if I draw this circle right here, you can see that there's all these individual little line segments that make this up, right? And I can, let's see, explode curve. So if I do that, now you can see here's all of these each individual little ones. And then I was going to show you guys this tool in a second, but if I pull this up, you can see that now there's 24 sides here on this circle as I rotate around it, right? So there's 24 sides there. When we get into rendering, that means there's not only 24 faces going around this way, but there's 24 triangles making up this face here in the center. If I can even get a reference to where the center is. Let me see here. Oh, come on. There we go. So that's the center. So what you're not actually seeing is that if we were to go take this to render, each of these faces would have its own individual polygon, because polygons for rendering are only made up of triangles, or at least every program I'm familiar with uses triangles for faces. So it'd be a whole series of these. So you'd have 24 on this side, 24 on this side, and then these, because they have to be triangles, are subdivided like that all the way across as well. So you end up with 48, 96 faces for something that could just be this little tiny thing, right? So when you're working with some of these later on in the semester, if you start a circle, you might want to do something like 13 faces, and then that would end up with, visually you might not even notice. Typically faces are rounded like this. But if this is something small in your model, you might not notice, so it doesn't hurt to reduce some of these sizes. You could even go as small as maybe, like 9. I like doing odd numbers because it kind of obscures the pattern. So I could even go as low as 7, and then this subdivided, you'd end up with 28, so a quarter of the number of faces. So anyway, weird digression there, but it'll make sense later in the semester. So drawing circle, start your point, once your number of sides you're happy with, and then we can set a radius, because that's what it's going to use. In the same way we can do polygons, so I can set the number of sides for this polygon, and then start drawing here. And then while I'm drawing it, I can alternate if it's going to be inscribed or circumscribed. So I can hold down control, and you can see that as I do that, as I hit control, it changes between inscribed and circumscribed. So yeah, and then again I can do 2 feet. The difference here, and we'll kind of run into this a couple times, see how this has that kind of fancy shading, and then this is those strict polygons. If you guys have, let's see, window, default tray, soften edges, turn this tool on if you don't, and what you can do is double click on this and then try and crease this up, and you end up with effectively the same thing that's going on here. So if I drag this down, uncheck that, this ends up being, the exact same way that this was displayed. So if I reverse some of these on this, and then bring that down, you end up with that same style. So yeah, it's just the difference between a circle and a polygon is having that kind of blend visually applied at the start. Oops. Okay. We won't get into arcs now, but well, I guess I can get into arcs now. So let me do something like this right here. Arcs are kind of cool, and you can use them to create, well, arches and things. And some of them will have snaps. So if I get this in right the spot, see how it just snapped right there to half circle? So it'll actually let me draw an arch in here, and then I can erase that face in the center, and we can use the push-pull tool to add some depth to this, okay? And then here's the difference between, again, single click, double click, and triple click, and I can delete that. So let's go back to this house and apply some of these other tools we've just gone over with this little house that we're going to be working on. So if I hit F, that's going to bring up this tool right here, which is the offset tool. And something a habit that I have when using the offset tool is to select what I'm going to be working with first. And that's just because if I have multiple faces right here, it could jump to a different one. See how that, depending on where I am, it's going to jump to a different one. So I just prefer to select the face I'm going to work with and then switch to the tool in this case. So I'll click on the edge here, and then I'll bring it out. You can go both inside and outside. You can also go outside and enter a negative value, and it'll go in, and then you can go inside and enter a negative value, and it'll go outside. So let's go ahead and offset this 6 inches. So I'll do 6, enter, because again we're in the 6-inch, or we're in the inch as the default unit format, and that offsets this extra boundary around here. So if you want to think of what we're doing in AutoCAD, just look at it from top down, right? We've got, oops, back, there we go. So we've got this 10 by 10 border we created, just like we would have done with AutoCAD. We offset those lines out here, so we have the exterior walls we're working with. And then to actually turn these into walls visually, what we'll use is the push-pull tool, and we'll pull these walls up. And we'll do 8 feet, and that'll set the height for them. So then how do we put doors and windows in here? So same idea that we had in AutoCAD. There's just a couple extra steps. So what I'll do is I'll use this tool right here, the tape measure. The tape measure works best when you reference an edge like this. So see how when I'm hovering over here, it says I'm on edge. If I go here, it says I'm on endpoint. And what you end up with is if you're on the edge, there we go, it's going to do this line off into infinity. So you can see it goes way up there, it's completely parallel to whatever this line was. Because this line was parallel to the blue axis, it's going to go off into the blue axis forever. If I started on an endpoint, you end up with these weird little lines. I don't like these because especially once they're in your model, like you'll end up having them like that, and you'll be like, why do I have all these weird points in my model? And they're hard to select too. Like, I think I got one there, but like this other one isn't selecting. So they're kind of there we go, you can click on it. So they're kind of a pain, especially when you have a really complex model. So try not to use those at all, and try to reference here on the edge. So what I'll go do is I will take this, reference here, and then our door is going to be 6 inches from the edge. It's going to be 2'8" across, and it's going to be set up at 6'8" for the height. And then let's say I've got a window over here. We can put the window at, let's say 3 foot from that wall. It's going to go 2 feet out in each direction, so I'll offset this twice in each direction, and it's going to be a 4 foot tall window. And so now I have all these different tape measure lines that are on this face. And ideally they're on the face, because if they weren't on the face, then they wouldn't all be flush with each other. And if they're not flush with each other, you can't do this next step. So you can use the pen tool or the line tool. I'm going to use the rectangle tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click where it says intersection right there. I'm going to bring it down. And this would basically outline the door, right? How did I miss that? I'm outlining the door right here. So I'm using those intersections of the tape measure tool to create markers for myself. Once I've done that, I can come out here, right to left select, and just get rid of both sets of those tape measure tools because I no longer need them. Switch back to the push-pull tool, and I'm going to push-pull these faces through. So if I was to pull them out, you can see that I'm just kind of pulling this back here. If I was to pull this out this way, I'd be extending this face. So it's something where it's going to happen perpendicular to the face in all axes. So if I click on this, I start moving it this way, and it gives me this warning, offset limited to 6 inches. You'll also see that if I stop moving there, it says on face, and then you get this glitchy background here. That's just a graphic artifact from two faces interfacing. Don't worry about that, but it's a good key for you to recognize that when you're right here and it's doing this, that your faces are touching. So then you can click and it will draw that and cut it through. We had a problem with last semester with a couple people who weren't able to do it because it wasn't cutting. Don't know why it's doing that. But it should be fixed. Hopefully it is this year. I think got fixed mid last year. Anyway, okay, so we have this right here. We've gone over some of the more basic tools at this point. Let's start talking about groups and materials and components. So right now we put this little thing together right here, but there's some stuff I want to do. And so just like with AutoCAD, we have tags. Tags are tags used to be called layers. I'm going to call them layers a whole bunch because I'm still not used to them being tags. But tags are effectively used the same as layers. They literally just rename them for some reason. I don't know why. So what we can do is we can create some new tags in here. So I'll create one for walls. I'll create one for the floor. And then I'll create one for doors and windows. Oops. windows. Okay. So what I can do with this right here is I can triple click on this to select everything here. I can right click on it and I can choose make group. So what this has done is it's created this into a collection of things. This is a completely unique collection of things, just like if you were to group something in AutoCAD. The alternative that we have to that is going to be is going to be components, which is this version of blocks. So if I explode this, so let's see. So this is our, just remember right here, this one over here, this is our grouped one, and then this is our well, this is the one we're going to turn into a component. So if I right click on it, once it's all selected and choose make component, it's going to give me a little bit of dialogue here, and I'm just going to say this is house. And then we'll hit create. And now functionally these don't look any different. But if I select both of these and I do a little move copy over here, if I go into this one, this is again the this is the grouped one. If I go in here and I take this whole wall face right here and jam it into there, we erase that. That's one of those times where it didn't actually clear through. You can see that nothing happened up here, which should allude to the fact that when I do it over here, we should see something changing. And you can even see as I'm highlighting parts of this, it's highlighting the equivalent part in here. And when I make the change here, it's also going to affect this. So just like a block in AutoCAD, the components in SketchUp are functionally the same thing, where if you make a change to one, it will make that change across all of them. And there are different times where you might use a block versus a component. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and clear some of these out though, and we'll kind of dive into some of those deeper later. So now that I have this grouped, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on it, and it's going to get me into an edit mode. You can see that I've got kind of this shaded background here, and you noticed how when I did some of the other ones, those were also shaded in weird ways. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to do Control X, which is the same as going to edit and cut. So it's a delete and a copy. It's a copy and a delete at the same time. And I'm going to get rid of this little line right here too. You can't see it, but I know it's there. So now that I've done that, this is still grouped. I can go to edit, paste and place, and it's going to paste this floor back in here for me. So I've got the walls here that are still grouped, and then I've got the floor here that's now in its, well, it's just sort of now floating out here again. So if I double click on it, turn this into a group as well, now I can work inside of these areas. And something that I guarantee someone in your class is going to run into at some point is you didn't group anything. So if I explode both of these, and then you're working along on your project, and you drew a rug in here, and you were doing something, and then something went wrong, and maybe you didn't notice that somehow you had selected, like, you did a selection across here, didn't notice that you got that, but because it was blocked somehow, you did a move, and you ended up doing that, where you skewed something. So I would highly recommend you guys do something like this, where anytime you kind of get to a certain stopping point or you've finished something, make it a group, make it a component, and then move it to a layer. So I've got this layer right here. These are my walls. And to move the walls to a layer, I'm going to open up the Entity Info tab right here. If you don't have that, again, that's going to be under Window, Default Tray, and Entity Info. And then I'm going to change this drop down to walls. So I now have my walls assigned to the walls layer, and then I can move my floors to the floor layer. And then again down here in the window, in this window, I can toggle these on or off. So now that I've got my walls hidden, I can do some fancy stuff to these. So something I like to show you guys, you absolutely do not need to do this. This is just a quick demo, but like if I have this space right here, it's looking kind of boring. Something that I can do, little details really help in SketchUp. So what I can do is I can take this surface, I can offset this in, oops, get it on the right side there, offset it in 1/2 of an inch, and then I'll just come in here and draw these little lines right here. And what this is going to do is it's going to separate these areas out for me. so that this area, this big main area here, is separate from this. And then I can use the push-pull tool to pull this up and add baseboards into here. So let's raise these up 2.25 inches. And now I have a floor with baseboards. So when I turn the walls on, it looks a little bit more realistic, right? Any little details you can add to SketchUp really kind of help. So like if I had a wall socket, I could put a wall socket in. If I had a wall switch for lights, I could put that in. And we're going to get to modeling a door and a window here in a minute. But like little details that you add along the way really help. Okay, so anyway, like I said, let's build a door and a window. Here's how I build doors. Feel free to come up with your own. But now that this is grouped, I can draw this directly on top of it. Oops. And way too wrong of a spot. Okay, so I've drawn that in there, and then now I'm using this as a reference. So I've got this door area right here. To get rid of the interior here, I can just erase this bottom line right here, and that gives me this pattern that I can trace to create a door. I use 6-inch interior walls, so oops, really got out of place there. Okay. If you have something selected, it'll use that to try and rotate around usually. Okay, so usually. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the thickness of this wall, so it's going to be 6 inches, and this is going to be like a little cup that sits around here. And we'll use this to extrude along this line as a path. So I'm going to do 6 inches. We'll go back on the red axis here, 2 inches. We'll come out, let's do 3/4 of an inch, so 0.75. And then this was 2, so let's do 2.25 out. And actually, let's make that 2.5. So we'll go 2.5 out. Oops, 2.5. We'll come in part way through here, so I'm just going to kind of pick a spot. Let's do 4 inches because that's about where I am. And then we'll do 0.25 out. And this will be kind of part of the door frame itself, so 0.75. Again, I'll kind of hold down Shift, reference this. And then to see how much further I have to go, again, I can do this right here, where if I kind of reference this point, it tells me down here I'm at 2 inches. And this was 3/4, so I need to go 2 3/4 inches out. So 2.75, bring it out here, reference there, and close it up. And I end up with this closed face right here, right? So now I've got this, I can use the Follow Me tool, and unfortunately it's not in the menu, or did they finally put it in the menu? Hey, look at that. But it doesn't have, like, there's no shortcut key, so I can't, there's no shortcut key to use. So you have to go into a menu and choose one of the ways to use it. So when you're using this, make sure that you have the entire frame of what you're going to have it follow visible. Click on the tool, click on the face, and then I'll just bring it around here, and you can see that it generates this geometry on the fly for me. And now we've got that nice door frame right there. So we'll immediately group this, and then we'll come to the front again here, and we can take this reference of the front, and again, move this out, and this will be our door. If we're going for accuracy here, what we're going to do is we're going to offset this in 0.25 inches. And then I'm just going to erase the extra little bits around here. And that gives us the thickness, like, because your door doesn't, you know, touch the frame itself, right? And then we're going to pull this out 1.25 inches. And that'll give us some thickness to this door. You can do extra stuff if you really want to get crazy here. So if you wanted to do, like, a pattern on this door, you could do something like this, where you have, and you can kind of force it with the arrow tools. So if I go and point, or if I go in 1/8 of an inch, and then kind of just freehand this back out, you can add some kind of, like, you know, fanciness to some of these doors. And then just like in other projects, we can draw well, let's group this first. And then we can throw on a door handle here. Let's get it at the right height. No, it wasn't that high. It was 36 inches. And then we'll just we can do a little circle here, make it 0.5 or 0.75, pull it out. And then let's do the other cool thing that you can do with the follow me tool, which is follow on a circle. So again, I'll repeat this same process that I've done here. So I'm going to draw a face right here. Oops, except I went the wrong direction. And I can use this temporary face right here to draw what I'm trying to draw, which is going to be, I just draw this right there, there, and there. This gives me place for a doorknob. So now I can use the arc tool, and this part I'm totally just freehanding, like, don't worry too much about it. And then I can just kind of, again, I'm freehanding this, so I'm kind of making up my own dimensions as I go. And then I can erase these sides. And so what I'm left with is I'm left with this kind of like half profile of what I really want right here. And then I'm going to draw a circle right here, and that'll be the path that I follow. So once I've got this face selected, we'll choose the follow me tool, click on it, and then sometimes it just kind of does that. So just do a Control Z, and then it always works the next time. All right. So then you end up with a doorknob here that you can use. Triple click on it, group it, and then what we'll do is we'll use the move tool to just move this, move this to the other side, hitting Control to do a move copy. We can hit Q, and we'll lock it in that red direction, and then rotate this 180 degrees. And I did actually move it vertically in that process. Let me get the right corner here. It should be, I think this is the right corner. No? Should be the one that touches right there. There we go. I think that worked. Oh no, it's because I did the number of sides. Okay, we'll just do... where'd it go? Oh, did they get rid of one of my fun tools? Okay, then let's just grab this right here. If I hover over this little plus thing, it should just let me do that. That's probably an easier way to do it. And then I can move again. What I'll do is I'll reference one of these. So again, I stressed in AutoCAD, like, grab things by the things you can snap them to other things with. So I'm going to grab the face of this right here. I'm going to start moving it off in that direction, hold down Shift, and then move my mouse onto the face right here, and it's going to get that completely flush with the door. So I have a couple options I can go from here. I can group the two handles and this group door together, or I can cut these handles and paste them in place inside of the door there. However you want to handle that is fine, as long as I like it better when the handles are inside of the door group itself, because that way if I do come back and I wanted to be like, oh, my doors are halfway open, the handles move with it. So it's pretty handy like that. So I'll take this, again, reference the thing you want to snap to something with, and what I'm going to do is I'll grab this corner right here, and then I'm going to reference this face, so it's this outer side right here, and that should be kind of the more technically accurate way to do this. And so that gives me a door with a frame, and then I can group both of these together, or make it a component even, and call this a 2'8" exterior door. All right. So now if I have a whole bunch of these doors, let's say I've got X6, so I've got a whole bunch of these. Here's where component comes in handy is, again, if, like I mentioned, if I want, for some reason, all my doors, oops, that was not the pivot point I wanted. Oh, because, yeah, that's why it wasn't. Okay. So I could have this, say I want all my doors rotated 45 degrees, so I can rotate it, set 45 degrees, and now I've updated all of these to be rotated 45 degrees. To place this door, you have a button on your keyboard, K, and I forget where this one is because it moved around at some point. I don't know. It just doesn't have, for some, what is it? Back edges. Here we go. So K, under edge style. So if I hit K, you can see that all of a sudden I get a bunch of these little dash lines everywhere as I toggle it on and off. So if I hit K, I can then now reference this corner here. So again, where I want this to meet with the wall, I can grab this, put it in right there, and now I have a door as part of this space. I'll go ahead and repeat this process with this window here. So I'm just going to move this window out. Unlike the door, I'm just going to delete the face because I want to keep the rest of the window. And then because it's a window and I'm going to be working from, I need it to go all the way around instead of not a U shape. I'm going to work from the middle here as well. And so I'm just going to come out 2 inches, over 2 inches, out 1 inch, out 3 inches. I'm going, these are not actual measurements. These is probably a not great window, but I'm just trying to kind of burn through this a little bit quicker for the sake of where I'm going with this. So right there, I've got, again, the same kind of basic thing that I can use. Follow me tool, and then bring it around. And that's how you end up with your window frame. Group it, and then if you're doing a window where you've got, say, multiple things, so leverage the ability of the program to copy and paste things for you. So if I've got something like this, where this is a 1 inch thick frame, and then I would group this. And actually, let's go in here and make it slightly longer. So let's make it another point, so another 1/2 inch there. And then inside of this frame, we would have the actual glass. So I would push this out. And I tried, see, I'm moving this way. It's kind of hard to see sometimes. And I'm going to make it 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch thick. Triple click it, group it, and then I'm going to move it just inside of here. So you can see right there, there's the one I've got is this big one right here. These two are both going to move. Well, actually, let me cut this one out, go inside of this little mini frame, paste it in place, and then I'm going to shift this mini frame back a little bit. So we'll move this in 1/2 inch, and then again, I'll do a reference move copy, so I'll grab that corner right there. I'm going to want it to match up with this one right here. And then we just need to bring this back a little bit so that it's flush. And I'm just trying to make sure I grab the right corner right here, which is that one, and put it in place. All right, so we have all these. We have our doors. We have these windows. Actually, let me get those inside of the frame. And then I'll hit K again, and we'll go ahead and move this into there as well. Okay, so we've got our doors, we've got our windows, we've got this space, but it's all blank faces right now. So if you hit B on your keyboard or open up this materials menu right here in the side tray, you can see that we have a bunch of options here. By default, if you click this little house, it's going to go to in model. In model is things that are already used. If you open up components right here, and then click on in model, that's this little thing too, you can see which components I've created. So here's the door I created, here's the house I created, and then here's that guy that was in here. So he's in here by default, and pretty much all of those materials belong to him. So what we can do, and this is something I want you guys to learn right now from the start, because eventually at some point, some of you are going to run into an issue where your computer's running really slow. And so what you'll do is you'll go to your components first. You'll click on this little tab, and this process is a little bit different on a Mac. If you're using a Mac, I can show you in person. But your option down here for purge unused. So it's going to go through this list and see, oh, he doesn't using any of these here. Well, except I guess this 2-foot door or the 2'8" door, because remember I deleted the instance of the walls. So it got rid of those. And then when that happened, the little white tabs that were here on each of these materials also disappeared. So if I run this here, purge unused, then it'll get rid of all those excess materials. And I think there's a check now in here as well that does that. So just watch out for that, especially when you're grabbing stuff off the warehouse. We'll get into the warehouse in a minute. But that can start adding bloat to your program, and SketchUp kind of starts to slow down after about 64 megs of your file. And I've seen students' entire projects, one of my own projects slowed down because I put one bed in it from the workshop. So watch out what you're downloading from the workshop. Try not to go too crazy. But again, we'll discuss the workshop in a minute, or the warehouse. So right now let's focus on this. So I want to color this room. So what I'm going to do is start going through here with the materials. And I'm going to choose, we've got a couple different things here. So actually let's start with the window because we've got glass on that. So we've got some different options for glass here. So I can go in here and I can triple click on this piece of glass and just kind of keep doing it until you get down there. And then we've got some different types of glass right here. I'm going to go with glass basic. And then as you can see, it kind of turned transparent there. And if we jump back out, and I can hit escape until we get back out, you can see that it's kind of just a transparent window right there. Something else we can do is switch over to the Edit tab on Materials here, and I can change the color of this glass. So as you can see in the model here, it's updating the color of that glass as I do this, and it should also be updating that block a little bit more, but visually it's kind of not obvious. I'm going to go ahead and make my glass just kind of a little bit bluer, and let's actually pull up some of these other menu options here, because I want my glass to kind of appear in a certain way where it's a little bit blue but not super blue. And then we can also adjust the opacity right here. So it's just the slightest tint of blue. You can rename colors. So if I name this my glass, and then I go back here, you can see that it's still not in this list. I can reapply the basic glass to something. Oops. But if I go to in model, this one right here, if I hover over it, is my glass. So there's a couple cool things you can leverage with this. For example, well, let me finish doing this glass and then we'll jump into that. So if I go in here, apply that there, now I've got my glass color on this. And then let's go in here and let's create, actually let's get some of the solid colors. Actually, let's do wood. So we'll put framing as wood here. There's a couple basic woods. This one's fine for what we're doing. So let me go in here, and again, I'll get these frames, and I'll assign this wood to it. And then we'll do it on this one as well. And then I can apply it here, and let's put it on this door too. So I've got this same material on all these. So now if I go to edit this, it's going to update all of these, and these will become kind of my own bespoke thing. And now if I save this as trim color, if I'm consistent and I use my trim color material throughout my model, at some point if I'm going back and editing something, I'm like, you know what, this doesn't look right. I want this to be a little bit darker. Well, you can just go in and make it darker without having to go into every single thing in every single model. You can also see that when I updated this, it updated all of these doors. Let's go ahead and get rid of those though. Okay. So we've got a couple other things you can choose here. We can do, let's see. I don't like this. It used to be easier to find some of these. So because there's a siding option, and this is kind of a pain to look through. Plastic, meh. Where'd they put it? All right, let's just do brick. So we'll do outside of this building is going to be brick. So here's something I want to show you guys, and it kind of happened when I applied the glass to this, is if you take a material and click on something that doesn't have any active materials applied, you can see that it's going to apply it to everything. I don't want this whole building to be brick, so I'm going to have to go in here and double click on it. So I go on the edit, and then I'll just, oops, and now I'll go around and I'll do brick on all of those outside faces. At the same time, let's go ahead and apply some colors to the inside. So we'll go to solid colors. And then what colors do I want the inside to be? So we'll do frost white for the interior faces. That's frost white. Looks kind of beigey to me. And then we'll do like a crazy accent wall here at the back. So you can see that all you have to do is just find that face that you want to apply something to and click on it. Let's go ahead and find, oops, scrolled too far, the generic white. And so with this floor right here, I haven't applied anything to this floor, but we've got a lot of faces, right? We've got all these different ones for the baseboards that I put in there. So if I go in here and apply this to the whole thing, now all of those have a material to them. And then I can go in here and we'll do we have carpet? No, this is all ground stuff. Fabric carpet. So now if I go in here and I apply this to that floor, we've got a nice carpet floor, white baseboards, and then whatever these colors are going on around here. Okay? That should be enough for you guys for the first class. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this demo up here. And we will jump into some more things in the next lecture. See you guys.